Presenting
The Complete
Orson Welles
and the Mercury Theater on the Air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London.
as the third man.
Stand by.
We'll be on the air in 15 seconds, Mr. Wells. Yes, I know.
Stand by, everybody.
Mercury Theater on the Air presents Orson Welles as Count Dracula in his own version of Bram Stoker's great novel,
Who knows
Dracula.
what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Hello world, welcome to The Complete Orson Welles, brought to you by Dwayne Old Time Radio. This podcast will feature various classic radio programs ranging mostly from 1936 to 1952 that Orson either produced and directed, was featured on, or starred as a guest. If you enjoy my podcast, you can subscribe to receive notifications of new posts. Subscribing is free and only takes a moment. New episodes are posted weekly. If inclined, please leave a rating and or review on your preferred podcast service. Thank you for your support. Hope you enjoyed the genius of Mr. Welles. This week we have Mercury Theater production, and they're doing their production of Native Son. The title is Stage Timing, Courtroom Scene from Native Son. There are no month and day that I know of, but this one aired in 1941.
Your Honor, I'm trying to make the court understand the true nature of this case. I want the mind of the court to be free and clear. And then if the court says death, let it mean death. And if the court says life, let it mean that too. But whatever the court says, let it know upon what grounds its verdict is being rendered. Night after night, I've lain without sleep, trying to think of some way to picture to you and to the world the causes, the reasons why this Negro boy sits here today, and why our city is boiling in a fever of hate and excitement. I've pled the cause of other criminal youths in this court, as Your Honor well knows. And when I took this case, I thought at first it was the same old story of a boy run afoul of the law. But I'm convinced it's something more terrible than that, with a meaning more far-reaching. Where is the responsibility? Where is the guilt? For there is guilt and rage that demands that this man's life be stamped out. There is guilt and responsibility in the hate that inflames the mob gathered outside those doors. What's the atmosphere that surrounds this trial? Are the citizens intent upon seeing that the majesty of the law is upheld? That retribution be dealt out in measure with the facts? That the guilty, and only the guilty, be caught and punished? No. Every conceivable prejudice has been dragged into this case. The authorities of the city and state have deliberately inflamed the public mind to a point where they can't keep the peace without martial law.
I object, Your
The
Honor.
hunt for Bigger Thomas has served as an excuse to terrorize the entire Negro population of this city.
Your Honor.
An excuse to cause the arrest of hundreds of members of suspect organizations, to raid labor union headquarters and workers' gatherings.
Objection. Objection sustained. Strike all that from the record. You will confine your remarks to the evidence in the case.
Your Honor, for the sake of this boy, I wish I could bring to you evidence of a morally worthy nature. I wish I could say that love, or ambition, or jealousy, or the quest for adventure, or any of the more romantic emotions were back of this case. But I cannot. I have no choice in this matter. Life has cut this cloth, not I. Fear and hate and guilt are the keynotes of this drama. You see, Your Honor, I'm not afraid to assign the blame, for thus I can the more honestly plead for mercy. I don't claim that this boy is the victim of an injustice, but I do say he's the victim of a wrong that's grown like a cancer into the very blood and bone of our social structure. And Bigger Thomas sits here today as a symbol of that wrong. And the judgment that you will deliver upon him is a judgment delivered upon ourselves and our whole civilization. The court can pronounce the sentence of death, and that will end the defendant's life, but it will not end this wrong.
Your Honor, I object. The court is still waiting for you to produce mitigating evidence, Mr. Max.
Very well. Let's look back into this boy's childhood. On a certain day, he stood and saw his own father shot down by a southern mob while trying to protect one of his own kind from violence and hate, the very violence and hate represented in the mob gathered around this courthouse today. With his mother and sister and little brother, Bigger Thomas fled north to this great city, hoping to find here a freer life for himself and those he loved. And what did he find here? Poverty, idleness, economic injustice, race discrimination, and all the squeezing and oppression of a ruthless world. Our world, Your Honor, yours and mine. Here again, he found the same violence and degradation from which he'd fled. Here again, he found the same frustrated way of life, intensified by the cruelty of a blind and enslaving industrial mechanism. And it's that way of life that stands on trial here today, Your Honor, in the person of Bigger Thomas. Like his forefathers, he's a slave. But unlike his forefathers, there's something in him that refuses to accept this slavery. And why does he refuse to accept it? Because through the very teachings exemplified by the flag that stands here in this courtroom, he was led to believe that in this country, all men are free. With one part of his mind, he believed what we had taught him, that he was a free man. And with the other, he found himself denied the right to accept that truth. On the one hand, he was stimulated by every token around him to aspire to be a free individual. And on the other hand, by every method of our special system, he was frustrated in that aspiration. And out of this confusion, fear was born. And fear breeds hate, and hate breeds guilt. And guilt in turn breeds the urge to destroy the symbols of that fear and hate and guilt.
I object. All this is merely an attempt to prove the prisoner insane. Objection overruled.
Bigger Thomas is an organism which our social system has bred. He represents but a tiny aspect of a problem whose reality sprawls all over this nation. Kill him! Burn the life out of him, and still this living death continues. You can't kill Bigger Thomas. He's already dead. He was born dead. Born dead among the wild forests of our cities, amid the rank and choking vegetation of our slums, in the Jim Crow corners of our trains and buses, in the dark closets and corridors and restrooms, in our Jim Crow Army and Jim Crow Navy, even in the trenches when we send them to war, marked off by the fingers of the law as black against white.
Your Honor, I object. Continue, Mr. Max.
Consider these witnesses for the state, Mr. and Mrs. Dalton. I've only sympathy for these poor grieving parents. You've heard their testimony. You've heard them plead for leniency toward this boy. Well, may they plead for leniency, for they're as guilty of this crime as he is.
Your Honor.
Unconsciously and against their will, perhaps. They're partners in this drama of guilt and blood. They intended no evil, yet they produced evil.
I object. He's impugning the character of my witness.
I am not. I've only sympathy for them. But I'm trying to state facts, and these are the facts. This man rents his vast real estate holdings to many thousands of Negroes. Among those thousands is the family of this boy, Bigger Thomas. The rents in those tenements are the highest and the living conditions are the worst of any in this city. And yet, this man is held in high esteem. Why? Because out of the profits he makes from those rents, he turns around and gives back to the Negro a small part as charity. And for this, he's lauded in the public press and held up as an example of fine citizenship. But where do the Negroes come in? Nowhere. What have they got to say about how they live? Nothing. Around this whole vicious circle, they act and move at that man's behest and must accept the crumbs of their own charity as he wills or wills not. It's bribery, and corpses can't be bribed. And such living corpses as Bigger Thomas here are warnings to us to stop it, and stop it right now, before it's too late.
Your Honor!
One more word, Your Honor. There, on that wall, hangs the likeness of one of our forefathers. One of the men that came to these strange shores hundreds of years ago in search of freedom. Those men, and we who followed them, built here a nation mighty and powerful. The most powerful nation on earth. And yet, to those who as much as any others helped us to build that nation, we have said and we continue to say, this is not your country. This is a white man's country. Night and day, millions of souls. The souls of our black people are crying out, this is our country too. We helped build it. Give us a part in it. A part free and hopeful and wide as the everlasting horizon. And in that fear-crazed, guilt-ridden body of Bigger Thomas, that vast multitude cries out to you now in a mighty voice, saying, give us our freedom, our chance, our hope to be men. Can we ignore this cry? Can we continue to boast through every medium of public utterance, through newspapers, literature, the radio, the pulpit, that this is a land of freedom and opportunity, of liberty and justice to all, and in our behavior deny all these precepts of charity and enlightenment? Bigger Thomas is a symbol of that double dealing. And for that reason, Your Honor, I beg you, not in the name of Almighty God, but in the name of ourselves, to spare the life of Bigger Thomas.
Thank you for listening to and showing your support for my podcast. If you would like to receive notifications of when new episodes are posted, please subscribe to my channel. Subscriptions are 100% free, and they really help me get an idea of how I'm doing.